summons from J.P. Morgan. I didn't think I had a choice.
You didn't.
I want to know what happened to the money.
The whole railroad industry is in chaos.
I'm too ambitious, too busy, too committed, and I'm not the right color.
This house is the closest thing to a home I've ever known.
Everything I've built is on the verge of collapse.
Is it just me, or did we just witness the most emotionally devastating episode of the Gilded Age yet? Like, I know this show always delivers drama and elegance, but let's be real. Season 3, Episode 7, titled Excommunicated, took things to a completely different level, and now our expectations for the season finale is higher than ever. The heartbreak? The secrets? The gunshot? Yeah, we're still trying to process it all. And if you thought last week's episode set the bar high, this finale just shattered it. George's fate hangs in the balance, Bertha's world is crumbling, and Oscar's truth is finally out. So, what does this all mean for Season 4? Let's break it down. Bertha Russell has always played to win. And in this finale, she finally does. On paper, at least. After snatching the Newport ball out from under Mrs. Astor, Bertha hosts the grandest event of the season, possibly of the century. Every eye in society is on her. She's done the impossible, turned the very people who once mocked her into desperate social climbers begging for an invitation. Even the whispers about inviting divorced women couldn't stop her. In fact, it made her look even bolder. Progressive, powerful, unshakable. This was supposed to be her moment. The moment she proved to everyone, especially the old guard, that Bertha Russell is not only here to stay, she owns the game now. But what's so gut-wrenching about this finale is how hollow that victory feels. From the outside, Bertha's life has never looked more perfect. But if you really paid attention, you could see the cracks spreading faster than ever. George is still living apart from her, barely speaking to her. Their marriage, once built on mutual ambition and fierce loyalty, is now a shell. And Bertha knows it. She tries to celebrate her win, share the news with him, rekindle something. But George, hurt by her manipulation of Gladys's engagement and her relentless pursuit of power, can't bring himself to forgive her. When she tells him, "We did it," he just looks at her coldly and says, "You did it." That line cut deeper than anything else in the episode, and it doesn't stop there. Larry, Bertha's golden boy, her pride, her anchor, wants nothing to do with her anymore either. He's still heartbroken over Marion breaking off the engagement, and when he finds out Bertha likely had a hand in it, he doesn't hold back. "You always get what you want," he tells her, "and now I'm the one who's paying for it." That moment was brutal. You could see the pain on Bertha's face, because she knows he's right. She's fought so hard for a seat at the table, only to realize the cost was her own family walking away from her. That feeling, winning but being completely alone, is the central heartbreak of this finale. And just when Bertha begins to feel the weight of that isolation, the unthinkable happens. George is attacked. It's quick, it's shocking, and it's completely unexpected. A delivery man walks into George's office, pulls a gun, and shoots him. We don't see the aftermath. Just a flash, a sound, and then darkness. Bertha receives the news right in the middle of the ball when everything is supposed to be perfect. One of her staff whispers it in her ear, and you can see the air leave her body. She stumbles, clutches the wall, and for a second we see the real Bertha. Not the social titan, not the iron-willed hostess, but the woman who's just been told the man she loves may be gone forever. Her reaction says it all. She doesn't care about the ball. She doesn't care about appearances. She doesn't even care that she's just won the greatest social victory of her life. She rushes out without a word, leaving behind the glittering room full of people desperate for her attention. In that moment, all the power, all the titles, all the chandeliers and gowns mean absolutely nothing. Bertha may have won Newport, but she lost everything else. And now, the question hanging over us all. Is George Russell actually dead? The finale doesn't give us a straight answer. We hear doctors whispering, see staff running around in panic. There's no dialogue, no resolution, no comforting fade to black. Just Bertha sitting silently in a dark room, staring ahead with tears in her eyes, completely alone. The woman who once controlled every move on the board has no control anymore. And whether George lives or dies, one thing is for sure. Nothing will ever be the same. While Bertha's world crumbled under the illusion of victory, Oscar Van Ryn's story unfolded in quieter, more painful waves. For the longest time, Oscar has lived a double life, torn between who he really is and what society expects him to be. And for a while, he managed to keep up the performance. But Episode 8 finally ripped that mask off. The fallout from McAllister's book didn't just sink his public image, it exposed a wound that was already gaping wide open. And after the tragic loss of John, the man he truly loved, Oscar reached a breaking point. What made it even worse? He couldn't even grieve openly. Everyone around him saw John as just another friend, another roommate, while Oscar was left to carry the weight of that heartbreak in silence. It was cruel, unspoken, invisible, and yet it was so real. This episode gave us one of the most emotional moments in Oscar's entire arc. Marion visits him. She doesn't dance around the truth. She doesn't pretend she doesn't know. Instead, she walks in, sits beside him, and quietly says, "I know." And in that moment, something shifted. It wasn't just about sympathy. It was about validation, about being seen. Oscar looks at her, unsure whether to be relieved or terrified. But Marion doesn't flinch. She doesn't offer pity. She offers presence. It was a beautifully written, quietly powerful scene that finally allowed Oscar to feel human, not just a character constantly playing defense. Later, he shares his story with someone he never expected to see again, Gladys Russell. Yes, she's back in New York, right in time for the ball, but she's not the naive girl we left behind. This Gladys walks in with her chin high, her voice sharper, and her intentions crystal clear. She knows London's social scene will be brutal, but she's ready. And who better to guide her than someone who's already lived a double life under the crushing weight of societal expectations? Oscar sees in Gladys a version of who he could have been, had he been allowed to live freely. And in a surprisingly tender moment, he tells her, "You'll be stronger than Mrs. Astor." It's not just a compliment, it's a passing of the torch, a statement of belief, and Gladys hears it. She smiles, not with arrogance, but with quiet confidence. That line may have seemed small, but it was monumental. Oscar, who spent the entire season buried under secrecy and shame, finally has someone to uplift, and in doing so, he uplifts himself too. Meanwhile, Marion, who's been caught between heart and logic all season, is finally forced to face the consequences of her own fear. After breaking off her engagement with Larry over what turned out to be a misunderstanding, she's consumed with regret. Larry wasn't perfect, but he was honest, and in her haste to protect herself, she destroyed something good. Marion thought she was being smart, guarding her future, protecting her reputation. But when she learns the truth about Larry's night out, the guilt starts eating away at her. The worst part? It's too late. Larry doesn't want to hear apologies. He feels betrayed, judged, and dismissed, especially by someone he trusted so deeply. And honestly, he's not wrong. Marion tries to explain, to plead, but Larry's walls are up now. He says, "You didn't even ask. You just assumed." And those words hit her like a slap, because that's exactly what she did. She didn't pause. She didn't wonder. She let doubt win. And now, even though she wants him back, the damage is done. The trust is gone. Watching Marion unravel in this episode was quietly devastating. She's always walked a delicate line between independence and tradition, modernity and expectation. But this time, her attempt at self-preservation became self-sabotage. In one of the final scenes between her and Ada, she breaks down, not dramatically, but deeply. She says, "I thought I was doing the right thing." And Ada, ever the gentle voice of reason, simply replies, "Sometimes the right thing hurts the most. It's such a soft, painful truth, and it leaves Marion standing in the ruins of what could have been a beautiful future. Meanwhile, Gladys continues to shine. For once, she's not just a pawn in her mother's ambitions. She's her own woman now. During the ball, she moves through the crowd with ease, confidence radiating from every glance. She's no longer being told what to wear or whom to dance with. She chooses. She speaks with power. She smiles with purpose. And when she finds Marion standing alone, broken-hearted, she doesn't gloat. She comforts. She tells her, "You'll be okay," in the same tone Oscar once used with her. It's a full-circle moment that ties these characters together through shared pain, but also shared strength. In so many ways, this finale wasn't just about tragedy. It was about evolution. Oscar is no longer invisible. Marion is learning the cost of doubt. Gladys is stepping into her power. And while all this unfolds under the glittering lights of Bertha's Newport ball, the real story is happening behind the scenes. In quiet glances, in broken conversations, in unspoken truths finally being said out loud. But just when you think the episode is winding down, just when you think the emotional weight can't get heavier, it does. Because George's fate still hangs in the balance, and Bertha's spiral is only just beginning. And now, let's talk about someone we never thought would change, Agnes Van Ryn. For 2.5 seasons, Agnes has been the immovable force of old money arrogance. She mocked progress, dismissed change, and clung tightly to a version of society that's been slipping through her fingers since the day the Russells moved in across the street. But something shifted in her during this finale. And the irony? It wasn't society that changed her. It was Ada. All season long, Ada has been slowly, quietly stepping into her power. Hosting a suffragette meeting was bold enough, but in this finale, she goes one step further. She takes control of the Van Ryn household. There's a striking moment where Ada sits at the head of the dinner table. Not Agnes. Ada. It's not played as some big coup. No one shouts, no one storms out. It just happens. And yet, that single image said everything. For the first time in their lives, Agnes wasn't the voice everyone waited to hear. She was the one learning to listen. And even though Agnes won't admit it out loud, it's clear she's struggling. She's lost her financial cushion. Her social circle is shrinking. Marion's independence, once a point of annoyance, has become a source of pride. And now, with Mrs. Fane from the New York Heritage Society coming around more frequently, Agnes sees something she never expected. An opportunity. Not just to maintain relevance, but to do something meaningful with the legacy she's always protected. In one unexpected conversation, Mrs. Fane says, "The past needs a voice, but that voice must be brave enough to face the future." You can almost see the wheels turning in Agnes's head. For the first time, her sense of duty and her fear of change aren't fighting. They're aligning. And so, by the end of the episode, we see something no one could have predicted. Agnes tentatively supporting the women's suffrage movement. Not leading the charge, not shouting into the wind, but attending, watching, listening. Becoming a part of the world she used to mock. This evolution might seem small on the surface, but for Agnes, it's seismic. And you can bet it'll define who she becomes in Season 4. Now, while Agnes was learning how to move forward, Peggy Scott was being dragged back into a past she fought so hard to survive. The rumor mill, in its usual fashion, did what it does best. Twisted a tragedy into gossip. William Kirkland's mother hears about Peggy mourning a child in Philadelphia and, with her usual poison-laced smile, turns that information into a weapon. She confronts Peggy, not out of concern, but out of calculation. It's cruel, and it's exactly the kind of behavior we've come to expect from her. But what she didn't expect? Peggy standing her ground. Peggy doesn't flinch. She doesn't cry. She explains the story on her terms, with honesty, dignity, and clarity. She tells William the truth, that years ago, she had a child. That child was taken from her. That grief has lived in her every day since. She doesn't sugarcoat it, and she doesn't beg for forgiveness. She just tells the truth. And William listens. You can see the conflict in his eyes. He wants to understand. He wants to be supportive. But he's shaken. Not just by the secret, but by the weight of it. He says, "Why didn't you tell me?" And Peggy, in a voice barely above a whisper, replies, "Because I needed to be sure I could trust you with it." That line hits hard. Because Peggy has spent her entire life fighting for a place in rooms that were never built for her. Trust isn't a luxury for her. It's a survival tactic. In a heartbreaking twist, William doesn't answer. He just walks away. Not in anger, not even in shame, just confusion. And that silence is louder than any argument. For a moment, we think it's over. That this love story is just another casualty of truth. But Peggy's mother isn't done yet. In a jaw-dropping confrontation, Mrs. Scott storms into the Kirkland home and tears into William's mother with a fury we haven't seen before. She calls out the racism, the classism, the arrogance. "You think you're protecting your son from shame," she says, "but it's your pride that's poisoning everything." It's one of the most powerful scenes in the finale. Not just because Mrs. Scott is defending her daughter, but because she's tearing down a system that's tried to keep them quiet for generations. And she does it with grace, fire, and truth. William returns to Peggy, not with flowers, not with promises, but with a question. "Can we start again?" And the look on Peggy's face says everything. She's not sure. She wants to believe him. She wants to believe they can build something stronger from the ruins. But trust takes time. And love, real love, needs more than apologies. It needs courage. So when she says, "We'll see," it's not a no. It's a challenge, a test. One William will have to pass, one season at a time. Meanwhile, in the background of all this emotional chaos, the Russell Empire is teetering on the edge. Larry has proven himself in Morristown, securing the copper deal that could save George's business. But the celebration is short-lived. Because when Larry walks into the ballroom and learns his father's been shot, the foundation of everything he's fought for collapses. Bertha, who once stood as the unshakable pillar of the family, now sits in silence. Her husband is possibly dying. Her son won't speak to her. Her daughter is estranged. The house feels cold. The ballroom is empty. And she's finally asking herself the question she's avoided all season. What was it all for? This is the real tragedy of the finale, not just George's fate, but the reckoning Bertha now faces. She climbed every ladder, fought every battle, built a kingdom from scratch, and in the process, she lost the people who mattered most. There's a devastating scene near the end where she walks through her mansion alone, stopping in front of George's study. The door is closed. She rests her hand on it, just for a moment, and then walks away. No music, no dialogue, just silence. Because what do you do when you've won the world, but might have lost the love that built it with you? That question will haunt Bertha into the next season. And it will define the version of her we see moving forward. Not just the social queen, but the grieving wife, the broken mother, the woman at the center of a dynasty that may never feel whole again. By the time the screen faded to black on the Gilded Age Season 3 finale, we weren't just left with cliffhangers, we were left with heartbreak. With questions, with a deep, gnawing sense that nothing will ever go back to how it was. Because that's the genius of this show. It builds a glittering, refined world full of gowns and galas, only to reveal the human mess underneath. This finale didn't just wrap up the season, it cracked the foundations of every character we've come to know. And now, all we can do is wonder what will rise from the rubble. Let's begin where everything shattered, George Russell's fate. There's no official confirmation in the episode whether he lives or dies, and that silence is deafening. What we do know is this. The shot was real, the injury was serious, and Bertha's reaction wasn't theatrical. It was guttural, raw. This wasn't the Bertha Russell we've seen commanding rooms and controlling headlines. This was a woman in pain. And the timing? Almost too poetic. Her greatest social victory happened in the exact same moment she was losing the one person who had truly stood by her through everything. If George dies, Bertha will carry that guilt forever. And even if he survives, their marriage will never return to the version they once clung to. Too many words have gone unsaid. Too much damage has been done. Then there's Larry, now suddenly shouldering more responsibility than ever before. Not just with the copper business, but with his fractured family. He saw his mother, powerful, relentless Bertha, collapse in front of him. And despite their earlier tension, you could tell something shifted in him. Anger gave way to concern. Distance turned to instinct. He wanted to help her, but didn't know how. And that's where the Russells now stand. Rich beyond measure, but emotionally bankrupt. Season 4 will likely push Larry into a central role, not just as the heir to George's empire, but as the only person who can bridge the growing chasm between Bertha and the world she thought she had conquered. Meanwhile, Marion is left staring at the ashes of her own choices. Her breakup with Larry wasn't just about one bad night. It was about fear, about doubt, about the quiet terror of letting someone in and being wrong. She thought she was protecting herself, but in the end, she only built her own prison. And now that she knows the truth, now that she understands how unfairly she judged Larry, she's haunted by it. The Marion we'll see next season won't be the same wide-eyed romantic. She'll be someone trying to earn back trust in a world that doesn't forgive easily. Whether Larry ever opens that door again remains to be seen. But one thing's for sure, she'll never make that mistake again. And what about Oscar? After living in the shadows for so long, this episode gave him a kind of quiet liberation. For the first time, someone saw him, really saw him, and didn't recoil. Marion's visit cracked open a part of him that's been locked away by fear and shame, and Gladys's support reminded him that he still has something to offer, that he can still make an impact. His grief for John is still raw, still heavy, but it's now shared, acknowledged, and that small shift changes everything. Season 4 could finally show Oscar living more authentically, maybe still quietly, given the time period, but no longer in isolation, no longer pretending to be someone he's not. Gladys, on the other hand, has transformed before our eyes. From the overprotected daughter of Bertha Russell to a confident young woman who knows how to wield influence without mimicking her mother's ruthless tactics. Her return to New York wasn't just for the ball, it was a declaration. She's ready to face London, ready to break rules, ready to make her own name. And if Oscar's words are any clue, Gladys may end up becoming the social powerhouse Bertha wished she could be, but with more grace, more empathy, and a stronger sense of self. And that will be fascinating to watch. As for Peggy, her final moments in the finale left us with the perfect blend of hope and hesitation. William's return and his offer to start again weren't tied up in a perfect bow, and that's what made it real. Because trust isn't a switch, it's a slow climb. Peggy has spent her entire life having to be 10 times stronger, smarter, and more cautious than everyone around her. So when she says, "we'll see," it's not a dismissal, it's a boundary, a challenge, a sign that she's open, but not naive. And in Season 4, we'll likely see her continue to rise, not just as a writer, but as a woman defining her own terms in a society still trying to box her in. So, where does the Gilded Age go from here? With George possibly dead, Bertha emotionally unraveling, Larry trying to hold the family together, Oscar finding freedom in truth, Marion standing at the edge of regret, and Peggy redefining resilience. Season 4 is shaping up to be the most emotionally explosive chapter yet,